Hello, and we are live for another edition of the Kobo Writing Life live Q&As. And this month we are chatting to Melissa Storm. Melissa, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I feel like our regular weather update coming from kind of like a gloomy long weekend here in Toronto. It's like kind of like edging into fall, which I am not personally ready for, but I know a lot of the team are already, doused in sweaters. What's the weather like where you are, Melissa?
It is cold and windy in Alaska. I had to wear layers for our state fair in August this past weekend. So
Oh,
early
well,
winter here, I think.
oh, well, I hope it brightens up a little bit. Let us know in the chat where you guys are tuning in from. Would love to see where everyone is based out of. And then, Melissa, I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction. So, Melissa Storm, who also writes as Molly Fitz and Luna Ryder, is a New York Times and USA Today best-selling author living in the heart of Alaska, as you mentioned. Your stories dive deep into themes of mental health, friendship, and community. So I'm excited to talk about your books. And then also in addition to that, Melissa runs Novel Publicity, who provides marketing, advertising, and assistance services for all authors, regardless of the path to publication. Novel Publicity believes that every story deserves to be told, and every story deserves its own base of readers who will love and cherish it for many years to come. So I'm really excited to jump into this because you have a wealth of knowledge that I'm sure we're going to kind of only touch the tip of the iceberg on. How many Alaska puns can I make in an hour? Like, that's going to be it now.
I am really excited. Make sure to use the wildlife as well as the geography.
Of course, of course. So if you have any questions throughout the chat, throughout the conversation, throw them into the chat and we'll try and pull them up. But let's start, Melissa, with your own writing career. Can you tell us how you got into writing and like indie publishing in general?
Oh, goodness. So this has been my full-time career for 14 years now. So I'm about to turn 40. So basically my whole adult life after graduate school, I had a brief blip in the translations industry, which is why I love talking about translations. If that topic comes up, I'm very passionate about it. But then I just realized I had a knack for social media. There's a site called Meetup where you can create online clubs that meet up in person. And I started a book club and it got to almost 500 members. So and we were reading the classics at the time. So when the local paper in Ann Arbor, Michigan had decided to go digital, they were looking for community experts and they had decided I was a books expert. So I got the honor of writing for them for free, which when you're starting out is actually a really big honor. And then they liked what I had to say so much, they started to pay me for it and made me the lead contributor. So I had a weekly column that was online and in the physical newspaper. And that kind of gave me the push I needed and confidence to write my first novel. So I did that in 2009 and 2010. I ended up publishing the second book I wrote first. And I chose indie because traditional publishing, querying was very hard for someone with mental health issues. It's not a fun experience. I did get an agent, but the agent found me through my social media presence and platform. That ended up not working out. In the time since, I have published with the big five and with small presses and all manner of styles. I kind of am in the mind, I'll try anything once. And the path to publication is not the right answer is not the same for every book. So some books I love having with traditional publishers. Most of my books, I choose an indie path. But that's kind of where it all started back in the day. And I started my business after I had written my first novel, but before I had published it, because it just seemed like I had a knack. Everybody was retweeting me. Twitter was part of my origin story, and now I hide from it like it's the devil. My blog was getting tons of hits and people were coming to me for advice on social media and building a platform. And I was like, oh, there's something here. And I kind of fell in love with the business side almost as fast as the writing side. So I've had both careers going at the same time all this time.
What an interesting start from like a book club, and kind of making your way into like writing yourself. Your passion for books certainly comes through. How long do you think before you were kind of full time? Like when you started, like when did
Um,
you decide that this was it as your career?
Immediately,
Oh wow.
for the business side, the first month I had made 5 figures, of hanging my shingle out. If that's the right phrase. I'm horrible with metaphors spoken. Like I'm so good at them in my books, but like mixing metaphors is like how you know you're talking to the real me. If I'm ever kidnapped and there's like an appropriate metaphor, it's a cry for help. But anyways, yeah, the business took off immediately, and there were so many people who wanted help, needed help, reaching out to me. I was working 100 hours a week for years. And it took a long time to get my writing career up to where the business was, because I always went to the business first because that's where I was seeing success. That was where I was wanted. And when you have a successful day job, although I don't consider it that, it can feel really selfish to sneak away and spend time writing for yourself when you don't know if anybody will want it. You don't know if it will make money. You don't know if it will lose money. It feels greedy, especially as a parent. I think a lot of us struggle with that. So eventually my writing career really became 6 figures full time as well. When I made a rule, I do it for them, I do it for me. I was working for a lot of high profile authors and I wasn't giving myself the same treatment and respect. So I started treating myself as a client and it worked. The other thing I did is I'm a very risk tolerant individual. So I'm like, I'm so sick of only making a couple $100s a month. I'm going to be a USA Today bestseller. So I just went for it. I invested heavily. I said, I'm going to do this. Come watch. I'll teach a course. Watch me hit it for the first time. And that worked. And that kind of started moving me towards 6 figures as an author. And now I'm like mid 6 figures. But yeah, that it was several years behind the business really taking off.
Wow. And I think that attitude you mentioned before about like needing to try everything once really helps when you're indie and helps with those goals, because yeah, we always try and encourage our authors to experiment and try different things. But yeah, it really is one of the best parts of being indie is that you have the flexibility to do that. Do you have any advice for authors who publish under multiple pen names like you? Do you recommend like doing different newsletters, or do you just kind of put it all into one?
I keep everything super separate. And that's not necessarily the correct answer for everyone, but if there's ever an algorithm involved, mixing your pen names is a bad idea. And Kobo has not done this to me, to be fair. Amazon sure has. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word or if it will get like bleeped out. But in the past, when I've tried to co-brand and like when I first started Molly Fitz, which is probably my most successful pen name where I write cozy mysteries with talking cats. I had it branded as Melissa Storm writing as Molly Fitz, and Molly Fitz just took off like a shot. So my existing platform as Melissa Storm, the algorithms got confused and said, oh, Melissa Storm is cozy mysteries with talking cats. And it destroyed my also bots. It destroyed the algorithm. It just tanked that name. And it took me over a year to get it back up. So then I had tried to launch a different pen name, an urban fantasy pen name. And I was like, I'm not co-branding. I've learned that lesson. And this is a pen name that's now dead. And I'll tell you why it's dead. I wrote these urban fantasies with my best friend under a new pen name, not co-branded or anything. We shared one pen name, and they had a familiar tiger. Her pet was a white tiger. So I told my Molly Fitz readers who love cats, this is my new pen name. There's a cat. And then they all went and bought it. And then the algorithm thought that those were cozy mysteries. And that pen name never got the chance to live. It was basically stillborn, to use a horror. I told you I'm really bad at metaphors when speaking. So now I keep everything completely separate. Occasionally I'll mention, like with my international audiences, my French, German, Italian readers, I will tell them about the other pen names because those don't seem to be as impacted, and I have less marketing venues for the languages I don't speak myself. So I will tell the newsletter, this other pen name of mine has a book you might like. And that's been safe and okay. But for my English pen names, I never cross them.
Was keeping them separate just so you could kind of like target the audience more specifically rather than having Melissa Storm write in multiple genres?
Yeah, it's really hard to have a retailer working against you. So I really appreciate when a retailer works for you and helps you. When a retailer is actively hobbling your book because they think it's a different genre than it is, and then when they say, "Hey, cozy mystery readers, here's an Academy urban fantasy," and they're not interested, they're like, "Nobody wants this book," so then they stop showing it altogether. So I'm just really careful about keeping those audiences separate because it's very hard when a retailer decides to work against you. And I know that it was their algorithm, not a human being who decided they hate me. But yeah, lesson learned.
And do you have any tips for authors who are starting out kind of with what not to do in marketing, or like tips that they should listen to? Or does it kind of change depending on the author?
It's going to depend on the author's individual strengths, but for my journey and for what I see with many authors I work with, now there are notable exceptions, but for the most part, your brand needs to be really niche down and very consistent. So authors, if I would have written everything as Melissa Storm, I wouldn't have been able to fix the problem I had when the algorithm decided I was what I was not. I was able to fix it through targeted advertising on one side, and on another side, I was just like, I don't want this bad enough, I give up. But if you have all your eggs in one basket, everybody loves saying that, you can't make an omelet. I don't know. Something, it's just not good. Insert witty metaphor here.
Something about a baked Alaska is where my mind is going, but
cool. Yeah, no, I think it's just really important for that brand to be stable. And a lot of authors are like, I don't want a new pen name. I don't want to do that work. I don't want to have a separate newsletter, website, Facebook page, what have you. Like, then don't write a separate genre. Like, let's keep it consistent, especially as you're building up. Like, some of my clients who are in the 7 figures authors, they can get away with writing different subgenres of romance under one pen name, but that is the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, there's a comment here from the Paper Sparrow that says, I had my rom-com ranking in horror before I learned the lessons around pen names.
Look at the cute kitty. And I like the name Paper Sparrow. Yeah, it's not a fun lesson to learn, and it's a really hard one to fix once it happens to you. So that's like advice people come to me for and never want to receive. They're always looking for the exception. And I'm like, sure, if you want to like shoot yourself in your own foot, like go for it. But then how are you going to run?
Yeah. You mentioned the brand building there. So if we were talking about an author that's kind of relatively new or just like starting out, or maybe they're starting to build a brand new pen name, what steps can they take to sort of build their own new brand? Like, what would be the first step? Like, is it, consistent theme around your brand, like the colors and being really key with that? Is it website? Is it newsletter? Is it all of the above?
I think it's really the message and what the message is and how it's delivered. So what is the reader going to get out of reading your books? What are they going to experience? Not what tropes are you going to hit? What genre are you writing in? But what emotions are they going to feel? What are they going to have time and time again? I'm in the process of launching a new pen name for humorous fantasy as a writer. And they're going to have funny escapist stuff all the time without romance. And it's neurodivergent friendly. And I've really developed it for shorter attention span, younger generations, and people who are neurodivergent and need their focus. It's harder to find focus. So they need things to be happening. They need it to be quick. They need it to stay interesting and not devolve into tons of exposition. So I've been very consistent in how I'm promoting that brand and putting those things forward. And one thing I'm struggling with that brand, so you can be an expert and still make mistakes, is I've decided that I'm going to be a Twitch streamer because I video game every day anyways. So I thought I can just play and broadcast to my target audience and they will love it. Well, my books don't have swearing or sex. And when you meet me in person, That's my favorite things to talk about. So I'm playing The Witcher 3, which has a lot of nudity in it. And as I'm fighting monsters, bleep this, bleep, bleep, oh, bleep, 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 bleep. And I'm like, okay, I either need to like chill out because this is not my brand, or I need to abandon this. Like I either need to learn to keep it at the right content level so young readers feel welcome and parents aren't worried about sharing with their kids, or I need to find a different venue. So things like that are really important too.
How are other authors using Twitch? Like, do you know much about the kind of author world there? Is it purely really just like video games? Is there ways that people are being inventive?
That is a great question. So I've been on Twitch since Tuesday. And I've streamed 3 times, and I'm still definitely in the learning phase. One lesson is I need to play a more appropriate video game. But I know some authors will write on it. Yesterday when I was streaming, my social media manager, who manages all my social media that's not me as a face and a talking head, she popped on and was giving me advice. She's like, you've got to like not do all this sexual content. This is ridiculous. You don't have that in your books. And I'm like, you're right. So she was giving me a lot of different ideas about having like, you can do a pay gate for different levels of content once you reach a certain point. So she's like, you should have a Luna After Dark. And they have to pay, and then they get the sex scenes from The Witcher, and they can say who Geralt's going to romance next. And I'm like, that's still not brand appropriate. So no. But yeah, some people write and talk while doing it. Twitch is interesting for me because you're talking to people. So it's like, what's the right amount to talk? Do I only talk about the game, or do I talk about whatever's in my brain? So I try to talk about like neurodivergence, since that's a big part of my brand. So I get lost a lot when I'm gaming. I try to read a map and I'm like, this makes no sense. This is an alien language. And then I'll just like walk into a wall. So that's an opportunity to talk about neurodivergence and directional dyslexia. But mostly I've just been focused on like reacting to the game and talking to people who pop in and chat with me. But yeah, that's definitely a new opportunity to reach Gen Z and millennials. But it's still relatively untapped in the author community for sure.
We'll have to have you back on in like 6 months or a year.
When I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
When you have at least 15 followers, Melissa, you can come back. I have 3.
We have a question from Sander here, who says, how important is social media for an indie author? Could ads and press reviews be sufficient?
Well, my main thing is ads. So yes, they could be sufficient. I think press reviews are definitely less relevant in today's age. Just speaking with somebody who runs ads, my company runs ads for probably about 100 different authors, and 25 of them I personally do. And we've tested like Starred Publisher Weekly or #1 New York Times bestselling author review quotes against reader quotes that we pull off of Amazon or Kobo. And almost always the reader review does better because it just feels more authentic. I think authenticity is going to be a buzzword a lot for marketing with the rise of AI. There's a fun, controversial topic to drop in there. People want to know it's a real person they're talking to, that they're reading, that they're getting the referral from. So I find customer reviews that are somewhat, I don't want to say illiterate, but like maybe there's a typo or a lot of exclamation points. Those are the ones that resonate, not the really well put together press quotes. For social media, for the first part of the question, I always say when it comes to marketing and putting yourself out there in any capacity, again, authenticity is key. If you hate social media, don't be on social media. Like maybe you can find a channel you like, but maybe not. And I feel like readers see that passion. They see when you're genuine, and when you're enjoying yourself, they'll enjoy themselves as well. But you're not going to win over someone who loves TikTok if you hate being there. So don't waste your time. Double down on what you do love. And if you can just find 1 or 2 things that it doesn't feel like work when you're doing it, that's the best place to be. And that's why I'm trying Twitch, because I game anyway. So I'm like, how can we monetize this hobby?
I think that's smart. Definitely to like not be on the platforms that you're not comfortable with. And if you are not comfortable with any platforms, then there's always people that you can hire to do some of that for you. I think it's good advice for sure. Let's chat about ads because it's kind of part of the question and kind of came up there. Could you, if authors aren't familiar at all, could you name out some of like maybe the key differences between like Facebook ads and Amazon ads that people should be aware of? Do you also do Google ads? Like where do you put your energy and focus and what are the main differences?
Yeah. First, since you brought it up, I'm going to call you out. Are there ever going to be Kobo ads? Because that would be pretty cool.
It's definitely something that gets discussed from time to time, like never say never. But we do like to have the uninterrupted reading time with the customers. So we have our paid promotions tool where you can kind of apply for different promotional opportunities. It's not quite the same as like a cost per click ad. But yeah, maybe if there was enough interest, never say never.
I'm interested, but I do love that you maintain a good reader experience as well, because that's been problematic on some other platforms. So my company does Facebook, Instagram, Amazon, and TikTok ads. The TikTok ads are secret menu, and you have to know the secret handshake and meet several criteria to get us to do TikTok ads. And it's not me personally. TikTok is a platform that I personally hate being on. I'm trying to get better. I'm not following my own advice. I'm like, I gotta learn short form video for my short attention span audience. But in the past, every TikTok endeavor has been doomed for me because I just feel old and get frustrated whenever I'm there. So it's not a match. But yes, we do ads on all those platforms. My personal specialty is Facebook ads, as well as Instagram ads. And with Instagram ads, you're looking at videos, reels specifically, as well as sometimes stories. So my authors who do really well with Instagram ads, they're good TikTokers. They make great short form video content. They know how to do hooks, and then they give me those videos. I put them on Instagram reels. And it just helps the ads go that much farther because Facebook and Instagram are the same company, Meta, and you run them through the same dashboard. But you just have very different approaches for the two platforms. So you wouldn't cross them in the same campaign. I don't know if I'm getting too far into the weeds. So
no, I think this is great. I'm always interested to see what's going on. And where do you find the best traction, or is it really dependent on the ad in terms of like book sales?
Yeah, it depends on so many criteria. Like first off, I mentioned brand consistency and authenticity. Those are really important to have on lock before you invest in advertising. Now you can use ads to test, like, do I need to change my cover? Do I need to update my blurb? But all those tests cost money. So if you know that you're hitting the market correctly and you have a good cover and your description is written well, then it's time to try ads. I personally prefer Facebook ads because I'm not great at short form video content yet. So I'm not running Instagram ads for my brands, but my authors who are good at that content, they go very far. So if you're just naturally great at TikTok and wanting to venture into ads, I would try Instagram Reels ads before even touching TikTok ads. They're easier to get started. You can do a low budget. TikTok ads, they really want you to have $50 per campaign to start. And that's a pretty big investment if you're just learning versus Instagram. You can just throw 5 a day at it and see. But yes, I love Facebook ads.
You wouldn't do a static image Instagram ad, or is it just that you find that they don't perform?
They do not perform. The videos are where it's at.
Right.
And a lot of authors will make the mistake of having a single campaign and serving it to Facebook feeds and Instagram feeds, but the audiences are so different. So you really need a separate campaign and a separate approach. With Facebook ads, you have a static image. A lot of times I just use the cover art because then when they click over to the retailer, they see that cover again and okay, this is what I clicked on. I haven't been tricked. Some romance authors, sometimes their ads look like they're promoting Tinder or an escort service or something. Like I want people to know what they're clicking on before they click it, because then you can retarget them later. So if you're having a bunch of people who aren't the right audience clicking, you are diluting your best audience. So I don't like to do that.
You mentioned the book cover before. Have you ever had an ad with a certain cover and it's made you rethink your cover choice because of how the ad was performing?
Oh yeah. I rebrand constantly. Like, I really support artists, and I'm obsessed with hoarding book covers like a dragon. I love art so much. But even if I make the perfect choice for the genre and the industry at the time, things change. So I'm a big believer in rebranding. So occasionally I'll see performance declining for one of my genres or series, and I'll say, okay, time for a new cover style. Sometimes I'll also retitle the book to make it hit the market better. And what's interesting is my Melissa Storm pen name, which is my oldest one, it's actually come full circle. So I have one series that I've had 4 different covers for, and I've gone back to the original covers and titles, and that's helped it perform better. So like it's come back into vogue now.
Nice. That's what Laura said at the beginning, that it's great with indies that you can experiment and really make those quick changes if you see the market sort of adjusting what it's responding to. I'm kind of curious, is when an author wants to start advertising like on a platform like Facebook and Instagram, is there a certain number of books? Like, is it could you just have one book out and you put money into that, or is it better off to wait while you have a few titles to sort of kind of hook the readers into?
Yeah, the answer is it depends. Everyone's favorite answer when they ask a great question. But it's going to depend on the genre. Some genres really need complete series. Romance readers in particular lately, they're like, I don't want to try this new author until I know the series is complete, especially if they read in something like a subscription service. They don't want to start until they know that they can finish. But a genre like psychological thriller, that's primarily standalone books. So that's going to be easier to market as a one-off. It's also going to depend on your risk tolerance, and how much you expect to see back. Some authors start ads, and if they're not 5xing their money right away, they consider it a failure. Well, it's going to take time for you to learn. It's going to take time for the platform to learn and optimize. You might have to make some changes. 5x is a really lofty goal that not everyone can hit. Like, you have to have everything kind of perfect. The branding, the work you're putting in, the conditions, because just the industry matters. When retailers are behind on reporting, which I haven't seen Kobo do, but other retailers sometimes all week are behind on reporting right now, making my life really miserable. Or you might have rank freezes, so your new release bombs, or there might be a contentious election that influences buying behavior, or the industry could be getting rocked by something like AI, which impacts ads, or Facebook can decide to change something and they break it a little bit. So there's so many different factors, but I would say if you are willing to say goodbye to whatever money you invest and go in knowing that you might never see it back, you're going to have a much easier time, because I think more authors get defeated by their own anxiety than the actual conditions of advertising and the market. So for me, when I'm trying to launch a new pen name, I just want to break even. Like, I'm okay if I don't profit at all. I just want one to one as I'm building that brand. And as the brand gains strength and prominence, then I want to see 2 to 1. Then I want to see 3 to 1. But I know with something brand new, it's going to take a lot longer to see my money back. And my goal is to just not lose money. And a lot of authors aren't comfortable with that. So I'm a very risk tolerant individual, and that's not the norm, I don't think.
No, I think that's good advice. That's kind of how I treat casinos, right? This money is just going away.
Yeah.
And like, if I get it back or break even, excellent.
That's a good day.
Yeah. I know it's very like subjective, and like you were just saying about like how, if it gets to like 2 times, then you're winning. Is there any sort of metric that authors can kind of aim for? Or if not, how long would you leave an ad before you had to adjust it? Like, how long would you have it running before you think you have enough information to tweak?
So I make adjustments the very next day, but I have years and many clients and, in the millions of dollars of ad spend under my belt to kind of intuitively know what's happening. I also run ads differently than a lot of people whereas I create mini. So if I'm setting up a new campaign, I probably am spending $25 a day and have 20 different audiences, each with 3 or 4 different ads inside. So I start a new campaign, 80 different ads. So then I can start turning them off the very next day. So I'll look at what's the average cost per click, and anything above that average goes off until I only have like a handful of ads left. And then I'll say, what are the patterns? Or sometimes when you have different images or different text, immediately a winner emerges. So, okay, this is the winner. How can I do same but different, which is kind of what readers want, same but different. So I'll turn off all the ones that are not the winner, and then I'll add more. I've had campaigns with over 1,000 ads in them because I've tested them so much. And that's part of what Facebook advertising is like, is you just pump it full of content. You learn and you hone and you iterate, versus something like Amazon ads is much more static. And for me, it's very boring. So I have different experts on my team who run Amazon ads, and I know enough to talk about it. But every time I log into the dashboard, I get frustrated and bored, and I don't want to be there. Versus Facebook ads, always something is happening. It's dynamic. It's exciting. You're either winning money or losing money. And I like to think of, you mentioned gambling. I think of Facebook ads as a game where the prize is money. And like you can win that every day. It's fantastic. Achievement unlocked.
I think you could do some kind of ad for Facebook ads, to be honest. You make it sound so fun.
Maybe that's your Twitch stream.
Yeah, honestly.
But then that's authors and not readers.
Yeah, that's
I know how to get authors to listen to me, but I'm like, hello there, kids. Oh, you Zoomers, I would like to sell you some books.
Because you've worked with so many different authors on the Facebook ads, are there any common mistakes that you see pop up a lot?
Well, let me think. With my authors, no, because with my clients, so many of them I've been working for years, and my personal client list is there's also secret requirements to be on my personal client list, and I can't tell you what they are. But there's a list of secret requirements. One of them is that you have to have a direct referral from an existing client who will enthusiastically endorse you. And part of that is to protect my own mental health, because some people aren't ready for ads, and they, will be very anxious, and I will absorb that anxiety, and it's not good for me. But for my authors, no. For authors in general, I think not having the cover and blurb up to snuff is the biggest thing. Like, don't cheap out on your cover. Like, it's got to be good. I also see a lot of authors, this is controversial, so sorry. A lot of authors lately use AI generated images in their ads, and they will just get blasted in the comments of people just going to war. It's an issue people are super passionate about right now. For my firm, we actually have a no AI images policy. So we will not use them. We will not create them because it's not a good business choice. I don't want to be bullied when I'm trying to sell my book. But a lot of authors are going that route, and just know what you're up against and mind your mental health. Because again, I feel like so many authors focus on the time and the money, and they don't consider anxiety and mood when they're considering the cost of things. But if my anxiety gets too high, I lose the whole day and thus any money I could have earned later. So I treat my mental health as my most precious resource when it comes to all things book industry.
Yeah, and all things, everything. I think you should always look after yourself first, for sure. But I think that's really important. We have a couple questions pop up. So Dora's asking, what about pricing for your books? Do you consider pricing, like, I guess, before you're setting ads up? Is that some feedback that you would maybe give if you were running ads for an author? You'd be like, look, this pricing isn't great, or...
Oh, for sure. Some of our authors have much higher priced books, and that does make it harder for the ads to convert. But that's, you're going to sell fewer copies, but make more on the copies you sell. Some authors will have a perma-free first in series, which is a technique that hasn't worked as well lately. Some authors have everything priced at 99 cents, which again makes it very hard to profit with ads. So that's definitely something we would weigh in on. For me, nothing is forever. I mentioned I changed my covers, I changed my titles, I kind of go with the market. And I see my books as living products, not just one and done. So for me, I change prices, I play around, I'll experiment with perma-free. I'm so sorry to say this, but sometimes I'm wide and sometimes I'm in Kindle Unlimited. It's only for a season. I always come back, but I just try to grab up those readers who are exclusive and then I back off because my preference is to be on all the platforms. But sometimes it's just easy to scoop up those subscription readers for a little bit and let them know it's limited and then back off. So same with pricing. Raise your price. If it doesn't work, you can lower it again. Nothing is forever.
And I think one piece of advice that we always give authors, and it's probably helpful with ads because you're potentially targeting multiple countries, is to make sure that you're like localizing your pricing so it's attractive. And what I mean by that is that you're rounding up to like the 99-cent price point. So for example, Kobo is kind of our biggest market would be Canada. So what we see sometimes is a lot of authors just setting the USD pricing and then letting it auto convert. So it could be $5.99 USD, which would be like $6.85 Canadian, you know, whereas you could be rounding up to make it a little bit more attractive. And I'm sure that would help your ad as well.
Yeah, I'm super diligent about that and understanding the market you're advertising to as well. So if I'm running ads for Canada on Facebook, I want to put Kobo as the main link, not Amazon. Right. And for France, usually you want to include both, but it's going to be different for each country.
Nice. Here is a great question that I feel like you'll be happy to answer. I hope. A challenge: how to ad reach boomers.
That's easy. They're on Facebook. So just do Facebook. This is my problem with my new Gen Z forward marketing. I'm turning 40 this year. So I'm on the eldest geriatric side of millennials. And until now, with my cozy mysteries and women's fiction, my readers have been 80-year-old widows. Like that is my audience. That is who I get fan mail from. That is who clicks on my ads. And all of a sudden I have a young audience that also includes men, quite a lot of men, which was shocking because my branding is pink glitter, but cool. Okay. And I've tried getting Facebook ads up to speed for my pre-order and it hasn't been going well because that audience is not on Facebook and they're going to be more risk averse about pre-ordering a book from a new author because they're younger. They probably have less disposable income. Now, if the book was live, it might be a different story, but that's kind of why, even though I kind of hate TikTok, I'm going back there because I need to master short form video content. If I'm going to write for Gen Z, I need to speak their language. Go where the audience you want is. Boomers are on Facebook, man. Like you don't really have to worry about Instagram or TikTok ads with them. They are on Facebook. And they like excerpts a lot where they can read a part of the story. A lot of times for most genres, you're going to be targeting women only. But it's definitely something to play around with. I think for most genres, boomers are the primary buyers from Facebook ads. The exception I make is paranormal romance. I do cut off 65 and above. I'll cut off that oldest category because I found that boomers don't love paranormal romance. But contemporary, mafia, dark, even reverse harem, they're there for it. Watching their grandkids and clicking on the dark bully ad, like they're totally doing it.
That's so funny. And yeah, definitely lots of good tips there about like looking at the age for the different genre. I've never considered that before, but that makes sense. I wanted to shift to translations for a little bit because I know you have lots of experience with translations. What are some common challenges that authors face when translating their books and how can they overcome them?
Oh, that's such an easy question that I can answer in one word. No, 2 words. It depends. That's all smart. That's how you know you've asked a good question, is if there's not a simple answer. I think translations can be extremely difficult because you don't speak the language usually that you're translating into. So you have to trust a lot of strangers. And it's hard to maintain that quality control when you just don't know. Some translators, some people who call themselves translators are using AI like DeepL and doing the translation and just running it through a machine and then charging you $1,000, and you have something that's basically unusable direct. So get references. And then, like I said, with ads, be willing to never see that money again. I did a Japanese translation because at the height of me translating into many languages, I have 5. And in most cases, my full catalogs are translated. I decided to do Japanese because I'm like, the Japanese love cats, cat cafes, and like kawaii kitty girls. Like this is bang on. This is the perfect audience. Except for that, it was so hard because text moves a different direction. It's a different alphabet. When uploading, I did not upload this one to Kobo, but for Amazon, they have their own KDP. You can do every other language in one account, but you need a brand new account to do Japanese. And then you have to put everything in the 3 different alphabets. So there were just so many challenges, even though the translation was easy with the cover design, with the formatting, with the upload. We worked through all of them. I had to get a completely new cover because they like completely different art styles. But luckily, I could repurpose it for French because the France market likes the Japanese art style too, I found out. But I got all of it done and I came through all of these challenges. And then I'm like, I don't know how to market this because can't do it on Facebook. I don't know what social media they're using in Japan. And I don't speak like with French, Italian, German, Spanish, I can at least know enough to conjugate verbs or edit reviews or blurbs down and have it still be good. Copy paste certain lines like, get it for 99 cents or new release or, magical fantasy series. For Japanese, I can't do any of that. I have no idea what to do. So it just languishes. And that's when I was like, okay, your ambition exceeded what you can realistically do. So my new plan is I'm going to physically go to Japan on vacation because I want to go there anyway. And I will take copies of my book. So that's my new marketing plan, which is very expensive. It's really just an excuse to go to Japan, but.
And a great one. I think you should absolutely do that. But you mentioned 5 languages. So what languages do you translate into? And if an author didn't know where to begin, what would you recommend?
I'm in German, French, Italian, Spanish, and Japanese. And my biggest hits have been German, French, and Italian. So basically not Spanish and not Japanese. I think Spanish is a natural choice people reach for, Americans, because it just feels like, oh yeah, I see Spanish everywhere. That's a good choice. But I mentioned I worked in the translation industry before publishing. So I knew that if I was doing Spanish, it would be for Spain, not for Mexico. So that's a different dialect. So I had to account for that. And I'm targeting Spain readers versus Mexico. And it hasn't hit in the same way. I don't know if they want complete series or if it's genre things. I tried a book for each pen name and it didn't work super well. But right now, German and Italian are great for me. I think Italian is a great place to start. German is kind of where everyone goes first. And German can be great, but it can also be really expensive. It's the most expensive language for me to translate into because there's a high demand there. And there's a lot more competition. So when you're doing something new, when it comes to marketing or publishing, sometimes it's a bit easier because nobody else is walking that path. So it's easy to say, look at me. This is your only choice. Read my book. And in German, it's much more competitive now. Italian, usually people go there once they've been translating for a while. So they'll do German. They're like, okay, that was good. Then they'll do French and then they'll, either like it or not like it. And then they'll go to Italian. But Italian costs me half as much as German does. And that's where I am really seeing my sales. I'm seeing my social media and newsletter grow the fastest in Italy. So I decided, since the Italians were being so great, to go there. I just translate, so I have excuses to travel. So I'm like, I guess I'm going to go to Italy because they've given me money. I'm going to give them some back. And then I got to know their culture better. And then I understood why my books were doing so well in Italy. I had no idea they loved cats to the level they love cats there. But this is my tattoo that I got. This is from St. Mark's Basilica, and I saw this in Venice, and I loved it, so I got it on my arm. So now I have a piece of Italy with me always.
Nice. I love that. I hope you share that in your Italian newsletter as well.
Oh, yeah. I should probably tell them, huh?
Yes.
I've been telling my fantasy Gen Z readers because I'm like, look, I'm so cool. I've got tattoos and a piercing. And did you see that my hair is purple? I'm one of you.
That's the Steve Buscemi meme.
Literally, I posted that meme. I'm like, how do I appeal to Gen Z when I am so old?
Even that meme is old. I feel old referencing it.
I know. No, I
reference that all the time.
Okay, Laura keeps me young with what people.
But also, I don't know what it's from. So
I think it's like it's a Rob Schneider movie, I think.
It's really Vanessa that keeps us young here, who is doing the comments.
Yeah, so that's me. And I'm like, well, I kind of look young. And if I use a filter, maybe I could pass for kind of young. I don't know. But I do think it's important if you're willing to put your face out there. I think that type of marketing is going to be more and more important as AI gains more. 30 Rock. Oh, really? Okay.
She hasn't let us down yet, so I trust her.
Yeah, I had no idea. I thought it was something totally different.
Yeah, I did think it was older than that. One of the questions that I wanted to ask about translations was, do you shift your images and everything for the ads completely, like depending on the area that you're targeting? Like if you're targeting French readers, are you thinking, okay, French readers are going to like this ad a certain way?
Yeah. And mostly it's down to figuring out the correct cover. So I have 3 different covers for Kitty Confidential, my book 1 in my Big Molly Fitz series. And I realized that the French readers just did not like the cover that had worked in the US and Germany, and it works in Italy, but the French readers just did not like it. So luckily I was able to use the Japanese cover art. And I tried a 3rd style because the Spanish readers didn't like this cover. With Cozy Mysteries, it's kind of cartoony and an animal is front and center. So some markets are like, this is a children's book. And then, you know, in some markets as well, like in the UK, Cozy Mysteries are cozy crime, and cozy is spelled with an S, not a Z. And you have to kind of learn all those regional things. I also learned that covers look different in the UK than the US. And they are more place-based descriptions rather than character-based descriptions. So at one point I did a huge experiment, which worked, but wasn't worth the amount of work it took to work, is I'm like, I'm going to create UK editions for all my books. So I changed the descriptions to be place-based, and I did covers that match the style more. And you can have more than one edition up by only going to specific regions. So on your US English edition, you would deselect UK and its various regions like Isle of Man and Jersey and such. And then you can put up a different copy of your book to only those markets. So that's a way to localize the branding. So it's not just French, German. It's like also you could have an English translation of your English book, actually.
Mm-hmm. And one thing I just wanted to add about the translation piece as well is that if you consider the different readerships, if you're not sure about the translations, because we have Kobo Plus is now available in 21 markets, which is wild, but it's in a lot of those markets that you're mentioning in terms of language translation, like France for sure, Italy, and I would say Dutch is a language that I think it is probably on the higher end of translating cost-wise, but I would definitely recommend it if you were kind of curious about the Dutch market, because it's a really strong book reading market for us, and it's where Kobo Plus launched. So that would be something to consider. And then Dora just popped up a question which was relevant to what you were just saying about the different covers there. Would you change your book cover per platform?
I've never tried that before. Probably not. I think just with the platforms, know the differences in their readerships. So my books are clean. Sweet is a controversial term, but my books don't have language or sex in them. across all the genres. It's just a decision I made, which is a weird decision because I swear a lot and talk about sex a lot in real life. I'm very inappropriate most of the time, which is why I'm having trouble with Twitch and getting used to it. But Apple, they like that. I always had a hard time on Apple because of my books being wholesome. Apple, they like steamy, they like thriller, they like the high octane things, versus Nook and Kobo, I find a better platform for me because those readers are a bit sweeter. I mean, Kobo Canadians, like, they're so kind and nice and they like to feel good. And they don't necessarily want the steamy, crazy serial killer stuff. I mean, I know there are ones that do, but for my books and my experiences, I always did the best on Nook and Kobo, and always had the hardest time with Apple. So if I change the cover and content, like if I change the cover blurb title, it still wouldn't change the fact that my books are not those things that those readers want.
Yeah, I haven't noticed authors doing that. And I think probably for ease of just having one cover that can work in multiple places. But I do think sometimes that readers are kind of, I was going to say like platform agnostic. Sometimes they read on multiple platforms. So if you have a different cover, it might be a little bit confusing if people already think they have that book. So yeah, I wonder about that as well. Maybe for ease of just having the one book cross.
I do read on multiple platforms as well. I have a Kindle and a Kobo, and I also do audiobooks. So it can be hard keeping track of what I have where. And there's definitely books I have on Kindle and Kobo by accident.
I feel like we could chat all day, but we're coming toward the end. So if there's any questions, we have a few minutes left to get to them. I feel like this is maybe a little bit of a hard question, and it's yours, Laura, that I'm stealing. We've talked really specifically about like ads and like platform building and translations. But do you have any effective strategies for indie authors to grow organic readership?
Yeah. Patience is a good start. It's like my least favorite virtue. I refuse to accept patience as a virtue because I want everything right now. There's a reason I'm targeting short attention span readers. But really determining what your core values are as an author and a human being and just abiding by them consistently. So not just, making sure you stick to your genre and niche under your pen name, not just getting your face out there and being a real human. But for me personally, my values are generosity, authenticity, and serenity. So everything I do, I want to make sure that I'm putting those three forth. And it's just day by day. Organic readership is really slow until all at once there could be a big boom. Another thing I'm doing with my new pen name is I know some big name influencers in my new genre, and I'm asking them for review quotes and promotion. And it feels icky and it's hard and it feels like, oh, I'm using this person I know as a real human being. But so many people, and especially so many Canadians, like I was recently at a Canada conference where I met Laura. And the thing I kept saying in every talk that I really wanted Canada to understand, but all humans need to understand, is so many people don't get what they want because they don't ask for it. If you're, I feel like there's a Real Housewives or Real World or something about when people stop being polite and start being real. Maybe Vanessa can know what I'm quoting. It's an old people thing.
Yeah, that's Real World.
She probably wasn't even born then.
Okay. It's Real World.
Yeah, it's
so yeah, so many people are worried about how they'll be perceived, or they're overly polite, or they're scared, or they think they don't deserve it. That's a huge thing with authors. But you do. And the worst somebody can say is no. They're not going to be like, F you and a plague upon you and your family for several generations because you dared ask me. Like, ask for the thing you want, try the thing you want. And the worst that can happen is you don't get it. But what if you do get it? Like, a very major person in the fantasy genre has agreed to endorse my book. And so I was like, I got to do this because these are my values: generosity, authenticity, serenity. I got to ask for what I want. So I asked him, and then I had a panic attack all day after I had already asked him, but I was so nervous. I'm like, there's only a 1% chance he'll say yes. Like, why am I freaking out? And then he said yes enthusiastically. And I was like, oh my God, I'm famous. TBD. But being able to network with people you've met and know. And when I met and got to know this person, I had no idea I'd be writing this genre and they'd be the perfect person to endorse my book. But I'm just out there authentically myself, meeting people, not hiding any part of me. If you ever meet me at a conference, you'll know because I'm very loud and say inappropriate things, but I'm always authentically me and willing to help people and willing to smile. And I just keep being myself, and that's how you grow. Like, there aren't really shortcuts for that until the seeds you sow suddenly, boom, harvest, like with the example of this influencer endorsing my book. But figure out what your values are and just live them every day, and the right people will find you. I would rather have 100 honest, genuine readers who love what I do than an inflated 100,000 member news list where they don't remember who I am and they don't care. So, authenticity.
I am dying to know who that is, but maybe once we stop recording, you can tell us, or I'll just patiently wait.
Yeah, I still have to give him the chance to hate it and send his endorsement. So that's why I have not said it publicly, but I can share privately after the fact.
Yeah, I just wanted to say as well that I think that's super advice, that if you don't ask, you don't get. And one thing about the indie community that I think is so special to work in, and something that you really exemplify, is also helping others, right? So not to just have the asking expectation, but just really being able to share your knowledge and what's working, and you know, making time for other authors as well. I think that's really awesome.
It's really nice, and it's a big one of my values is generosity, but also like authors do need to know how to say no too. So there's a balance to everything. My advice is have a good therapist. Mine is great. Here's all these things all the time. Have a great network of friends you can be your authentic self with. But you know, I love to help others, but sometimes I do have to say no. So learning when it's appropriate to say yes, when it's appropriate to say no. And others will treat you in kind. So yeah, yes, being generous, but also knowing your limits, because a lesson I've had to learn the hard way is if I say yes to somebody without thinking hard about it, I might not be able to say yes to someone more deserving later on, because I've filled my plate too full. So I have to be mindful of what I'm saying yes to as well. So there's the contradictory advice.
No, that's great advice, though. And yeah, I do think it's important to kind of find your author community. And one of the big places that I've seen that is Facebook. So, boomer Facebook. So one of the things I always recommend too is looking for like author groups on Facebook, like Wide for the Win is a good one. I know Alessandra Tor InkerCon has a group as well. So definitely looking for Facebook groups like that and going to conferences. Like now we have Toronto Indie Author Con where me and Melissa met, and that was a good one. So it's nice to have a Canadian conference as well.
And we met at the Future of Publishing.
Yeah, so lots of good indie conferences, actually so many to the point where we have to pick and choose where we go because we'd love to be everywhere.
And every conference I've gone to has really changed my career in life. Like the Future of Publishing Mastermind, where I met Tara, I also met Sound Booth Theater, and they're doing cinematic audio of my new book, which is just beyond what I ever would have expected or even known to hope for. It's basically a movie without visuals. They've got a Foley artist, a full cast, a composer. There's going to be music about my book. And I would have never made that connection or even known that was the thing I wanted if I hadn't gone there. I've made my best and closest friends at conferences. Sometimes just knowing you're not alone, because writing can be very solitary. I say that I go to conferences for inspiration, not information. So even if you feel like you know this career, you've been in it, you know, a decade plus, like still go. Like sometimes you need to be reminded to show, don't tell. As dumb as that sounds, sometimes you just need to hear it again at the right time.
That's really great advice. We've kept you for a while now, so I just wanted to hear what you have coming up next and where can our listeners find you online?
So I'm going whole hog into my new Luna Rider pen name. It's humorous or cozy fantasy adventure. So it's something different that doesn't exactly exist on the market. It's very neurodivergent facing and was developed with that in mind. Another thing I'm passionate about with Luna Rider is I do have LGBT characters, but there's no romance. They're characters who deserve to exist in our world or the fantasy world, who aren't defined by relationships. They're just there being awesome. And that's really important to me as a member of the community and the mother of a queer kid to put that out there. So I'm really passionate. I'm espousing all of my values with this, but it's fun. It's not preachy at all. It's hilarious. And so I'm on Twitch. I'm gearing up, working on the anxiety to be on TikTok and Instagram. I am on Facebook, even though my audience is not. I like it there and I will stay there. My website is lunarauthor.com, lunarauthor.com. And I will be doing a big launch with Sound Booth on Kickstarter in September. So look for us there. We're going to have a companion Dungeons and Dragons campaign with the hardcover special edition and audio. It's going to be just the coolest thing ever, and I'm really excited. So yeah, that's what I have coming up.
Busy, busy, busy. That sounds awesome. I'm really excited to see what you have next and to see you in person again at the next conference that we cross paths at.
I will be back in New Orleans. So
nice.
If you guys don't know which conference to go to, Toronto Indie Author Conference is amazing and it's close by. If you're in Canada, it's worth going to Canada, even if you're not from Canada, because it's just a peaceful, kind place where it's just less stressful than other places where you might live. But Future of Publishing Mastermind is my absolute favorite conference. I got so much out of it. And you were part of that, Tara, meeting you, and you had a whole presentation with my data pulled and ready to go. And I was so flippin' impressed and learned so much from you. And also New Orleans is like the coolest place. So yeah, I recommend both city. Conferences a lot.
Nice, nice. Well, thanks so much, Melissa. We'll let you get back to your busy morning. Thank you so much for joining us and for all of the wonderful comments and questions that came through during the live as well.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.